Welcome to the Software Report, a leading information source on software companies and solutions. In this episode, we speak with Anthony Deighton, CEO of Tamr, an AI-native master data management solution that unifies, cleans, and enriches fragmented enterprise data to produce golden records for generative AI initiatives, automation, and decision-making. Tamr's patented approach combines machine learning and AI agents with human refinement and oversight, delivering value in days or weeks and giving organizations 360-degree views that link data across silos in real time. Anthony previously served as Tamr's Chief Product Officer and General Manager for Data Products, and earlier held senior leadership roles at Celonis and Qlik, focused on enterprise data and software growth. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoy the show. If you like the episode, click to follow. Anthony, thank you so much for taking the time. Delight to be with you.
Oh, it's a total pleasure. Thanks.
Where I think we could kick off is for the benefit of our audience. You operate in the data space. Obviously, that's a very important space in the age of AI. Let's start off with a quick kind of overview of Tamr.
Sure. So Tamr's in the master data management space, and you're right about your point about AI. What's interesting from my perspective around Tamr and master data management is that, as someone so eloquently put it to me recently, MDM is having a moment. And I think that's a function of organizations increasingly deploying these AI workloads, whether they're AI agents or AI models. And then they're realizing that their data is a mess, right? Mm-hmm. It's unorganized, it's in silos, it's messy, it's incomplete, it's incorrect. And then when you turn that over to an AI agent, bad things can happen. Bad things can happen at scale, and that's scary. And so companies are saying, well, geez, we've got to get a handle on this. We got to organize this data, collect it together, and we want to do that across systems. We want to be thinking across business units, across geographies, across product lines, as we need to organize the data in a different way. MDM can help with that. And then Tamr can be a part of that solution. This also speaks to an important idea, which is Tamr uses AI to solve the MDM problem. So we're both being driven by this drive to AI inside the organization and a beneficiary of it.
And there's others in the MDM space. You have a unique history, and then I believe you grew out of MIT and you have a notable founder. Maybe give us a little bit of that history.
Sure. So Tamr came out of academic research at MIT in the computer science department under the tutelage of Mike Stonebreaker. And Stonebreaker is obviously Turing Award winner, a very famous guy. And he had a team of folks in his lab, and they were working on in a way, what sounds like a very simple problem, which is, can we train a model, can we train a machine to do basic data management tasks? Imagine you have data in lots of places, we want to link it together. We might consider doing that manually, or we might consider doing that with rules through a rules engine. What if we could train a model to do the same thing? And it started really with just that computer science problem that generated an academic paper. And then from that academic paper, the original idea behind the tool was data Tamr, T-A-M-E-R. And then, of course, somebody realized there was like a copyright violation, so it became Tamr, T-A-M-R. But, and again, the core idea that came out of that academic research is still very relevant today. What if we could have a machine do the work we would traditionally rely on humans to do around organizing, cleaning, updating, keeping up to date enterprise data? That's really the core idea.
Mm-hmm. And fast forward to today, what types of companies use your solution? Are these larger companies that have a lot of data that they need organized?
Before we talk about the customer, you said fast forward to today, and that's actually a really important idea.
Yeah.
Which is, when the original academic work was done, this idea that we could rely on machines to do work that we would traditionally rely on humans to do was kind of fanciful, if we're being honest. And I call it the ChatGPT moment, but like as soon as AI hit the mainstream, as soon as my mother-in-law started using it, all of a sudden this idea that we could rely on a machine to do this task or these tasks, all of a sudden became like, yeah, this is actually possible. And I think that's a lot of what drove the interest and adoption of Tamr's approach. So again, using the machine to organize the data and not rules or people. But to your question, yes, generally we see the larger the company, like, more data, more problems. Like the bigger the company, the more likely they are to have grown through acquisition, to operate in geographic divisions or product lines, to have many different underlying systems, to be organized with different data warehousing technologies, and then struggle with this challenge of knitting that data together.
What I've found, and this is somewhat anecdotal though, is that there's still a little bit of error. If I use ChatGPT, I have a degree of confidence that what it's reporting back to me is accurate, right? But when you're applying AI at such a large scale,
And for such an important thing, which is your enterprise data, for sure.
how do you kind of manage that kind of confidence level? Like, and do most companies who use Tamr say like, yeah, this is 99.9% accurate?
So the first thing to remember is that let's assume for the moment that just manually going through the data is your alternative approach, right? That also has an error rate, right? People are fallible. Or if you imagine trying to write rules to do the same, again, rules aren't perfect either. And there's a reason people turn away from a rules-based approach. They're hard to manage. Rules can be conflicting. They can result in outcomes you didn't expect because two rules become in conflict with each other. So there is no perfection. That being said, one of the powerful ideas behind a model is that models by their nature are probabilistic. And so it's much easier for a system like Tamr that's built with models at the core to surface the cases in which the model is least confident. So, with a rule, there's no sense of confidence. It's like it fired or it didn't, right? With Tamr, we can say these are cases where the model's having the most trouble. And these are likely to be places where you, as the human, want to make a tough call and make a decision. We have this concept we call the curator hub. And it's really, you can think of it almost like as a queue of places where the human can be most helpful. Mm-hmm. And this also speaks to the manual approach. If I asked you to go through 10 million records manually, you would probably quit. You'd be like, I'm not doing that. Life's too short. But if I said, look, here's 10 records that I'm having the most trouble with that would have the biggest impact on improving your business, you'd be like, yeah, I'll do that. 10 records, got it, no problem. And that's the distinction. We can apply human energy in the place where it's most valuable.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the application of the solutions. I believe healthcare is one of the big sectors. So maybe a great case where Tamr was put to use.
Yeah, so I think about an organization like CHG, which is in the healthcare staffing space. And if you think about it, this is a kind of a perfect problem. If you're trying to match clinicians to open roles, you often have many different systems that are contributing information to that match. You might have hospital systems with healthcare data. You also have physician systems. You may have background. You may have government data like NPI numbers, not to mention the fact that you have an open role with a specific set of requirements. That's in a whole different system. You might have other operational systems that are managing bits and pieces of the enrollment. And more importantly, matching the physician to the open role is really important. It's important to the physician, obviously, and it's important to the place they're going to go be working and be helpful. You want to make sure that they have admitting privileges, that they're the right skill set, et cetera. And that's exactly the challenge that, we're helping CHG Healthcare solve. It's also not a small problem, right? There are millions of physicians running through their data sets and their network, literally over 7 million. And there are many different systems involved. And so you could end up with lots of duplicate data, but putting Tamr in place, CHG now has like this 360 view of the provider in this case, and thinking about what's the perfect place, perfect role for that provider at this moment.
Maybe switching gears a little bit back to Tamr as a company, what stage are you at in terms of the life cycle? We talked about the origins and then we fast forwarded all the way to today, but can you give us a sense of like the scale of the business and where you view it's at?
Yeah, so I think we're in a way early in our journey. The original academic work was very much just that, academic work. There's a big difference between a set of algorithms, an academic paper, and then building a company. Now, fast forward, the good news is we're 60 people, almost all of whom are here in Harvard Square, Cambridge, Massachusetts. We have a team in London as well, and a few folks out in Asia Pacific. But the bulk of people are here. And really the focus of the energy of the business is around making the algorithms and ideas and really the technology super easy to use. And again, I think to borrow from ChatGPT for a second, I think this is the magic of ChatGPT and similar technologies, which is it took something that was available for many years prior to that point and just made it really easy to access.
Mm-hmm.
And in that same way, we want to make the powerful AI that we've built for doing common data management tasks so easy. Anyone can just, sort of sign up, provision, and run some data through the system, have it available in real time, have it available in their common analytical systems, make it like real easy.
Mm-hmm. And you brought in capital along the way. You have some investors. In terms of capital, are you in the burning phase? Are you looking for additional growth capital at a certain point in time?
Sure. So NEA and Google Ventures are the primary backers of the business. We're at a place today where I think we control our destiny from a growth perspective. We don't need additional capital. Of course, I do think AI applications, if MDM is having a moment, AI applications are probably also having a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think we're at an interesting inflection point in the business where we've reached this point where people trust the technology. They believe and understand that models can be helpful to them. And the central challenge, the thing we've been working on really for a long time around organizing enterprise data into these 360 pages that everyone can access, like that's kind of the moment. So, look, we're always looking for ways to accelerate growth.
Mm-hmm. I want to touch on your background. You have an interesting background in that you've served in different roles with different companies previously. And then when you entered Tamr, it was as a chief product officer, I believe. So we'd love to hear a little bit about your background. I believe it begins at A.T. Kearney.
That's true. I began in management consulting, for which I apologize. I was a computer geek at heart and really wanted to work in the tech industry. I worked with Tom Siebel, Pat House, Dave Schmeier, the team at Siebel Systems when they were building that business. And I think it's fair to say that, I learned an enormous amount from working at Siebel about what it means to be working at a professional company, developing mission critical, really important software for customers. Loved that, learned a lot from it. Then I joined a small unknown Swedish software company called Qlik. Literally, I was one of the first US employees. We helped build that business globally. We took it public. I started by running marketing and then ended up running product and actually took over engineering for a little while. And this is a common theme that I've had is this oscillation between the marketing and positioning side of the business and the product and engineering side of the business. And my general experience has been that it's really important to have both views. What does the market care about? What are customers talking about? How do they think about and use technology? And then what are we actually building? Like, what is the core essence of differentiation that we can bring to the market? And I joined Celonis, again, went back to the marketing side, running marketing there. I'd say a common theme between Celonis and Qlik was helping people visualize and consume data in new ways, whether it's Celonis with a process visualization or Qlik with a dashboard. But the common experience across both was that customers would complain not about the visualization, but about the data itself. And they were like, I love this, but the data's junk. Like, how do I fix that? And I'd known Tamr since it was founded, but I sort of bumped into it. And I thought, you know what? The next 10 years in the data space are not going to be about helping people see and use data differently. It's going to be about actually improving the data. Like, we've solved that visualization problem. Let's work on the data problem. And so that's why I joined here. I joined as chief product officer because there was some product work we wanted to do. And then I've taken over and just running the business. So that's been fun too.
This is an aside, but a lot of the younger generation now, computer engineers, are having a tough time getting positions because they're being displaced by AI. So the question is, what fields should they go into? And data seems like it's a good field. Do you agree with that?
I think that's right. And to say it a different way, the basic mechanics of writing code are becoming increasingly easy to turn over to machines. But the question and challenge associated with what do we want that code to do? what problem are we trying to solve, is not one that I expect machines are going to be that helpful. That's the kind of experience that requires talking to a person, understanding their needs and requirements. It is also true that I think that hits first in the data space. So to say it a different way, writing a Python pipeline to do a bunch of data transformation, like Claude Code can do that almost perfectly. Understanding why you're transferring that data and what manipulation you're trying to do to it is a very different question, and one where Claude might have many suggestions, but wouldn't really be able to answer the question. Thinking about how you would express the results of that code you wrote, that's a very different problem. And to your point, my advice to someone starting their career would be to put yourself in the position of understanding a business problem, understanding a business person's challenges, and then translate that into code, as opposed to starting with code and then trying to find an application for it.
Right. There seems to be universities that are dedicating large amounts of capital to data sciences. So last two questions. One is, can you tell us about a person who has had a profound influence on you?
Sure. I'm going to cheat and say two, and probably the easy answer to this, which is my parents. But in a weird way, they've both influenced me in very similar ways. Both my parents are academics. My mother was is an English teacher, English professor. And so in a funny way, I think a lot about my marketing side comes from her, thinking about the precision of language, the right sorts of words, that meaning really matters, is something I think she always was both very good at and sort of helped bring out in me. And then my dad is also an academic, and he is retired, but he was a professor across the river at the Harvard Business School. And one of the things about HBS is they use this case method, and sort of the essence of the case method is whatever you say, I say the opposite, right? Like we create this sense of questioning everything. And one of the things I appreciate about my dad is an ability and willingness to just take a contrarian view, just for the purpose of understanding the decision space. And that's always been something I've found to be very useful and learned from. Also, maybe to say it, both my parents are immigrants, came to this country, as did I suppose. So all of us have a lot of hope and respect for the kinds of opportunities that the United States sort of uniquely offers people who are here. So that's also true.
Last question. Can you tell us about a charity, cause, or other endeavor that you're passionate about?
Sure. This may be slightly unexpected. I, for, a long time now, over 10 years, have participated in a local group called Newton Family Singers, which is an intergenerational chorus. I am not a good singer, which is to say now after 10 years, I'm passable, I suppose, but it's certainly not something I would have looked at as a core strength of mine 10 years ago. But what I've appreciated about doing that is a couple of things. I'm not a naturally good singer, and yet this group of people can be accepting of somebody who's, learning and trying something new. It's also intergenerational. My kids have done it. I've done it. My wife does it with us. We do it as a family. There are grandparents in it. There's actually a family in there with like 3 generations that are all participants in it. And everyone kind of brings their authentic self to these things. We sing all different kinds of music, and it's a very broad cross-section of the community. And so, but a very welcoming one. And, in a funny way, it's fun. It's going to sound weird, but it's fun to do something you're not good at, that pushes you and challenges you in ways that are very different than work. And I enjoy that.
Excellent. Well, when's the next performance? There's a lot of listeners in the Boston area.
That's true. So I should know this off the top of my head. We're currently singing the Indigo Girls and REM, which I didn't know this before we started. Both are from Georgia. And actually they're sort of brother-sister bands. REM is slightly older, Indigo Girls slightly younger, but like the manager for REM was the one who discovered the Indigo Girls. And they've actually performed together. There's actually a couple songs that are written by REM that were performed by Indigo Girls, et cetera. And the concert is in like 3 or 4 months, but I don't remember the exact date, but we're early in the season.
Excellent. Anthony, thank you so much for taking the time. Great to chat with you.
Yeah, likewise. Appreciate it.